Shalom Chavrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and boy, do we have some really crazy things going on over in Ukraine. Talk about a flashpoint. We'll be on with Bonnie Harvey a little bit later today on Hebrew Nation Radio, discussing the very issues that are happening right now in Ukraine. And of course, we've been watching Syria to be the flashpoint, but I've always said I really believe it's going to be a simultaneous event. I believe it's going to be Ukraine, Syria, other parts of the world when these things go down. And of course, after Russia fired upon, let me put it this way, the Ukrainian Navy is saying they were fired upon. We can hear in the recording here, demanding for them to stop the boat. And finally, the engines are disabled. And I would imagine that Russia, with their own technology, were able to disable the vehicle, the boats there. And then, of course, then Russia's ship there takes and smacks into the tugboat there, probably just as a gesture of, hey, I told you to stop, you didn't stop, and now we're going to make you stop. But the situation is escalating. And when I say escalating, Ukraine approves a martial law after clashes at sea with Russia, giving the government a firm power over its citizens. Well, you know, that kind of lets us know that if they're doing that, let me just stop this video before it goes into something else here, that we are about to see some very sinister things that are going to happen in the Ukrainian country there against the citizens, especially those that are more pro-Russian. And it may also open the doors for the government to be able to make some movements militarily and to keep a prying eye of the media that they do not want to be able to have the freedom to move around from actually reporting what's going on in the ground there. Now, according to the RT report here, Ukraine's parliament backs Poroshenko's 30-day martial law in Russia border areas after the Kerch standoff, and as it states there, in the border areas. But that also includes the sea as well as land. That makes me wonder if there's not going to be some movement of military troops, and this may be exactly why that martial law is being declared. Very interesting. We'll be watching this, though, as these things develop. And by the way, we are getting ready all this week for the conference coming up in Kansas. Guys, listen, you don't want to miss this conference. You know, I had somebody ask me recently, they sent me an email maybe a couple of weeks ago, and a brother said, you know, we were at the Tennessee conference or either the Orlando conference, said, you know, brother, are you going to speak about something that you didn't speak about there, something of that nature there? Because we just want to know, should we come? And of course, the answer to that was, even at that time, I didn't really think I would. But there are some things I am going to add. Now, granted, I will eventually make this public. I just don't know what's the appropriate timing to make it public before an international audience. I got to prepare for the backlash, because I can guarantee you one thing: when you begin to blow the whistle on what really went on inside this government, they will do all they can to discredit me. They will say I never worked with them. You can count on it. I'll be blackballed. There's a whole lot of backlash that's going to come against me over the information that will go public. And I will say this, though. I will make it public on Patreon first. I am planning on later today on Patreon going into some of those details of the meeting that will be this coming weekend, Saturday and Sunday in Shawnee, Kansas, which is Kansas City, Kansas suburb there of Kansas City, Kansas. That is on the Kansas side. We know Kansas runs over on the Missouri side as well, but for those of you that want to come. And we are also, for those of you, let me just say this. Let me just pull up the website real quick. I'm going to also get into Governor George Wallace, by the way. I can share some things there as well that people are not aware of. We're going to be getting into some issues over Lebanon, the Americans that were taken hostage. All these things were happening during the time that I worked with the government on the cases that I was involved in, but they kind of intermingled together. So yes, I will be speaking about some things that I've not spoken about as of yet, neither in Orlando nor in Tennessee, either one. But anyway, if you come to our website, Israeli News Live, and you scroll down here till you get to recent articles, you will see Kansas Conference, December 1st and 2nd, 2018. There's an update. Of course, we have put in there the itinerary of the meeting. It does begin, I think, at 1:30 p.m. With Yana on 5G, 1:30 p.m. on Saturday. Dr. Steve Pigeon is next, and then I will begin at 4 p.m. that evening. And we are making it available because we know that some people run into technical difficulties being able to get tickets on the site, which, by the way, someone asked me about a return policy on this. We didn't set it. I meant to set that issue because we like it to be 2 weeks prior to the conference so we don't do any more returns, mainly because the whole purpose is for doing the tickets to begin with is because that's what happens to us. Unfortunately, if you make the conference free, people will say they're coming. We reserve so much of a space. We have to pay so much money depending on the size of the space we reserve. And then when people cancel, what happens is you get stuck paying a larger bill, whereas you could have had a smaller venue. And that's kind of the situation we would be in at this point. So we do have non-refundable tickets at this point here. So if you purchase or if you have purchased and for some reason you can't make it, we appreciate your understanding on that. But I did not put that in writing. I do have one person that asked. We will do that for this person here. But we want to make sure from this point we're not doing that, because then we'd just be stuck with a bill we can't really afford. So we base it based on the number of the people that are coming. But anyway, you can get a little clip there. We show some of the conference of Tennessee there, and I'll share a little bit of that clip here with you now. We were putting this up so that people could get an idea of what was being said. So let me share just a couple of minutes of that. There were no survivors, no bodies found, and the U.S. government alleged that Russian spies had infiltrated the country. The day that I wanted to know what had happened in Tallahassee that particular time, this was the story was related to me. I was sat down and I was explained that Russia sunk a ship off the coast of Florida. There were no survivors, and they infiltrated the United States, and they have always worked their way up in the political circles. When we find them, we have to take care of business. And so I was made to believe that we were dealing with Russian spies in our nation. I was never directly involved in taking someone's life. I never knew when it was happening. I'll kind of pause it there. You can actually see a clip of that on our website if you want to look at that. Also, it speaks in there where Yana speaks a little bit as well. And I have a little clip of Dr. Pigeon at the end, but I don't think that's actually what he'll be speaking on. But I just want to kind of give people a little insight of the type of information that we'll be sharing there at this conference. It is an eye-opener. I can guarantee you that. And if you want to know more about the New World Order, how involved Jesuit infiltrations, things like that are happening in this nation, you will find out at the Kansas conference, and you're going to find out in a way you've never heard it before. So even things like this, I have as of yet have not shared on Patreon either. And I have to tell you, friends, this is not a means of, oh, wow, let's sell tickets and have somebody come. Believe me, the number of people that come, you normally just do good to cover costs. It has nothing to do with that. My thought was from the very beginning when I decided to go public about my experience, and because of the Russia-phobia, and I saw firsthand, we were using Russia-phobia to justify all the killings that were going on in the U.S. government, but unfortunately it was never Russian spies they were killing. Not to say that they didn't do that as well, but it ended up being American citizens instead. And you just don't realize how deep this rabbit hole really goes. And just how much politicians work together on both sides of the coin there. It doesn't matter if they're Democrat, Republican, you're just made to believe that, wow, we got a real vote. Now, I'm not saying there's not some good politicians out there. There is. But at any rate, you'll find out about that rabbit hole. And maybe it just might cause people to think just a little bit differently about what's going on, even in your own current administration. And like I said, I had high hopes, but why did I have high hopes? I have no idea, especially after knowing what I do know. It's the same boat, same game, only different players. And the same objective is still going forward. Yeah, you will get a cashless society one day, but only after the army of jihadists is over. That's the only reason we're in a cash society to begin with. The cashless society will come in the near future, but that's when they have finally decided, wow, this is your millennial reign. Microchip and all. I don't think Yeshua would have been for that. How about you? I'm Steve Ben-Nun with Israeli News Live. Erev Tov.